Hi, greetings, it's me, Dr. Paul Gerhardt, and this is video number 9 in our marketing series. If you haven't checked out the other videos, I highly suggest that you do so because maybe you're going to find something to help bring you up to speed to get up to this next section. So, this video is all about segmenting, targeting, and positioning. And we're going to go over some key ideas for you to consider as you're developing a marketing plan, for instance, for your company or for your future company. So it really is important to be able to understand the differing methods of segmenting. After watching this video, you should be able to understand whether segmenting is attractive and worth pursuing for your business. And it probably is wise for you to be able to articulate the differences among targeting strategies, undifferentiated, differentiated, concentrated, and marketing. So these are some of the key terms that I'd like to cover in this video. And it really is important if you're in business that you understand what your value proposition is. You can't be all things to all people, and that really is a key concept in business. And so sometimes taking a look at what other companies do can help you be able to make sure that you're very clear on who you are and who your customers are. Companies like Netflix, everybody's heard of Netflix, and chances are for $9 a month or whatever the cost is these days, you probably are targeted by specific ads for Netflix that help them identify which segment you belong to based on what your watching needs are. And so when you see advertisements for Netflix, it probably is because you're watching other programs that are similar to what they have to offer. So let's talk a little bit about the segmenting, targeting, and positioning process. So step 1 in the segmenting process, you're identifying your strategy, your objectives, and your segmentation processes. Step 2 is all about the segment methods, and step 3 is about evaluating segment attractiveness. Step 4 is about selecting your target market, and step 5 is identifying and developing your positioning strategy. And so these are broken down into different segments in itself in the processes. So the first part of the process is segmenting, the second part of the process is targeting, and then the third part is positioning. And within segmenting, that's your strategy and objectives and your segmenting methods. Step 3 and 4, which is targeting, that's where you're evaluating your segment attractiveness and you're selecting your target market. And then step 5 is positioning. That's where you identify and develop your positioning strategy. So in step 1, you really have to be able to recognize that your overall strategy or objective really should come from your current mission or state. And so you got to really recognize who are you as an organization and how do you do it. So companies do this all the time and develop their mission statement because they develop a smart SWOT analysis. They identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. In step 2, the segmentation process, you've got essentially 5 different methods that you can use. One is geographic, for instance, North America, Asia, Europe, Africa, United States, Pacific Mountains, Central, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, whatever the geographic region, birds of a feather flock together. Or demographic, which is probably the most common, age, gender, and income. Psychographic really is about lifestyle, self-concept, and self-values. Benefits are about convenience, economy, prestige. And behavioral is about a occasion or loyalty. So with geographic segmentation, I know I've talked about in a previous video how Dunkin' Donuts introduced soup to its menu, and it included New England clam chowder, to the Northeast states. Probably this would not work so well if Dunkin' Donut has maybe stores someplace like Kansas, for instance. Demographic segmentation. This is the most common, and you could use the census.gov website to be able to identify and suggest some various segments that might be useful to your company, for instance. Psychographic segmentation really takes a look at self-value, self-concept, lifestyles. The term that was popular for a while was hockey mom, or middle-class educated married women that were concerned about children's issues, for instance. So that's an example of a psychographic segmentation. Geodemographic segmentation is another one, and in that it's about where you live, and it's about really taking a look at who lives in a specific area. For instance, you could look at things like median household income, the age ranges of the families that live in that neighborhood. How many kids do they have? Do they rent versus do they own their homes? How about education level? Ethnic diversity. So you look at lifestyle traits, do they own or lease a car, or if so, what kind of car? Do they own a horse? What kinds of foods and beverages do they drink? Are they beer drinkers primarily? And so if you start thinking like a marketer, you recognize there are some opportunities if you really recognize what's happening naturally in the world that you're segmenting into. So behavioral segmentation really takes a look at how people purchase, and some organizations create loyalty cards, or if you stay at a hotel for a certain amount of time, you earn points in a program. And so recognizing that rewarding customers for being loyal to your brand helps continued relationship with that group. So marketers really must determine whether the segment is worth pursuing or not, and there's some descriptive criteria that you could consider. Is the segment identifiable, substantial, reachable, responsive, and profitable? So you really have to ask yourself this as a marketer. And again, can you identify the segment specifically? Are they substantial enough to get a return on your investment? Are they actually reachable? Is there a mode in which that you could have your marketing campaign be able to connect with them? Will they be responsive? And would it be profitable enough to get a return on your investment? So you really have to be very clear on who your market is. So many people think it's everybody. But in marketing, you need to recognize you get the best bang for your buck, so to speak, return on investment, when you're very, very clear on how to address your marketing to your specific identifiable segments. So is your segment substantial? Sometimes if it's too small, it's insignificant, and too big, it might need its own store. So you have to recognize that it's hard to be all things to all people, but if you make the right investment the right way, with the right plan in place, it really is worth it. Reachable is about people must know that the product exists. They have to understand what it can do, and they have to recognize how to buy it. And so that's your job as a marketer, is to help people know that your product exists, what the product is all about, or the value proposition, and then make it easy for them to be able to purchase it. Responsive, customers must react positively to the firm's offering, and then move toward the firm's product or services and accept the firm's value proposition. That value proposition is key in marketing. So if you want to figure out whether or not it's profitable or not, you have to look at the segment size. And you have to be able to do a test to see what percentage of that segment is actually responding in a favorable way to your marketing. Are they purchasing at a certain price? You know, if you're selling it for $100 and you only sell 12, do you have the right price point? If you sell it at $500 and you're reselling it and you're getting 20 purchases, then maybe that's an idea that gives you an idea of how to adjust your marketing. So profit margin is important to consider too. It's all about return on investment. So if you get a better profit margin from marketing specifically to businesses versus homeowners, maybe that needs to be where you focus your attention. And then fixed costs are important to consider too. So all of these things, segment size, adoption percentage, purchasing behavior, purchase price, profit margin percentage, and fixed costs, all of these things kind of go into the calculations for whether or not that is a segment that you want to approach. So profitable segments clearly emerge when you can study your competitors. And recognizing, for instance, that children under 15 years is kind of a cool niche market. You have to recognize, you know, how many, if you're focusing your marketing on that group, and you're reaching them, what is the return on investment? So it's all about looking at numbers and doing test marketing and on a small scale before you address it on a larger scale. Think about the products that you've consumed, you know, mass market products. You know, how are they now differentiated from their competitors? What are they doing differently in order to help maintain their share of the market? You don't have to recreate the wheel, but you do have to take a very good look at what is the population that they're really targeting. So when you're developing your positioning strategy, you are looking at value, salient attributes, symbols, and also the competition. So the best situation, if a firm's product or service offering overlaps with customer needs and wants but suffers no overlaps with your competitors, it's likely this would not be sustainable, because competitors would attempt to copy the important product and service attributes and therefore begin to encroach on the firm's value proposition. So really take a look at how you overlap with your competition. If you want to determine value proposition, you really have to take a look at competitor benefits, your firm's benefits, and then the customer's needs. And recognizing how each of these overlap is really important. So the competitor benefits, what do those specifically look like? What about your benefits? How are you differentiating yourself from your competitors, but making sure that you are also meeting customer needs? You know, and then in positioning, like if you're using pictures of people, they should look like your target audience, you know, the specific segment of people that are in there. So maybe it is the hockey mom group that you're positioning, and so you should have people look like they're enjoying your product or service from that specific group. Positioning steps, there really are 6 of them. The first one is to discern consumers' perceptions and evaluate in relation to your competitors. 2, identify the market's ideal points and size. 3, identify competitors' positions. 4, determine consumer preferences. 5, select the position. And then 6, monitor the positioning strategy. So you could use a perceptual map and be able to identify. Remember in math when you thought it was useless to have a graph on things, we had the horizontal or vertical and horizontal axis. Well, that actually has some value in marketing. For instance, you could use a perceptual map to be able to analyze style versus price. And with style, let's say you're using a car manufacturer. You're representing car manufacturers, and you identify the style as either contemporary or traditional. That's the vertical axis. And then on the horizontal axis, you're looking at price, high versus low. So of course, brands that would be in the high contemporary area would be BMW and Cadillac. And in the low price area and in more traditional, maybe that would be Kia, Ford, and Toyota. Well, you can use a perceptual map to identify, what share of the market you have. You could have more focus and better return on your investment if you analyze who's in there with you, based on the 2 perceptual coordinates that you're identifying. So if you recognize that you've got a strong hold in the traditional low price area, but you don't have much competition in the contemporary low price area, maybe you may want to develop a product or service that goes toe-to-toe with a company. Say you're Kia and you want to compete more with Buick, for instance. So that's how you use a perceptual map. With let's use a soft drink manufacturer. Say you're Gatorade and you want to how you rate in a conceptual map. You might have things like sweet taste or light taste, healthy versus less natural or unhealthy. And so in the less natural and sweet taste category, there would be Coke and Pepsi. In the sweet taste and healthier region, you'd have Powerade. And in the light taste but more healthier category, you would have like Propel Fitness Water and then General Bottled Water. So being able to recognize through a perceptual map where to position yourself or where your opportunities are, that's how you kind of use that. So anyway, I don't like to ramble on. I did want to make sure that you had a good idea of what segmentation, targeting, and positioning is. These really are very, very important concepts if you want to be a successful marketer. So I hope that you found at least 1 or 2 concepts that you could take away and apply. If I went through things too quickly and you want to go back and watch the video, of course, I highly recommend doing that. And more than anything else, I hope that you have a great day, because only you get to choose how you feel about it.